praying it.
Miss Jody asked me to get us started this morning, and I was visiting with Senator Murdoch here just a little bit ago, and we've decided that, you know, we have never done a federal day. And we thought we've got two gentlemen here that represent our federal legislators, and we thought maybe we just have a federal day, don't you think? And let them just talk, and then they give us a break for once. No, not really. But we do have some. We're gonna let them talk first, and then we will get started. But it is great to be back home. It's great to be back in Northwest Oklahoma. I see you guys picked up the win today for us, and so anyway, it's good about that. So we have Wesley Jaworski. I'm gonna let him start. He is Congressman Lucas's representative. He does a great job. He covers a lot of area. He's got a lot more area than both of us combined. And so, anyway, I'll let him make a few. Let him talk, and then I'll let Peyton Byrne from Senator Langford's office talk, and then we'll pick it up.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Newton. I'm glad to be here. I'm coming in on a year, and I got in at the tail end of the EGN issues last year, and always enjoyed coming up to Alva. So with Congressman Lucas, one of the last times I was here, a big talking point was his injury, and that tremendously changed the last half of 2023 for us. He was run over by a bull, but he is completely healed from that. He's got the all clear from the surgeon. He's back in his normal rental car. Everything is great there. And so we're very, very fortunate it wasn't any worse than it is. And so thank you for all your thoughts and prayers for those who were thinking of him. And then as far as what we've got going on, in D.C. it seems like a whole lot happens and a whole lot of nothing also happens. It's a lot of drama, especially behind closed doors. But last year was supposed to be a Farm Bill year. That's redone about every 5 years. That is a little bit in limbo right now. It's held up because in September, the House and Senate need to come together and pass 12 appropriation bills to fully fund the government for the coming year. That has not happened with such slim majorities on either side, very narrow Republican majority in the House, even smaller Democrat majority in the Senate. It just takes a handful of people on either side to prevent anything from happening. So right now the government is funded on a continuing resolution, a series of continuing resolutions that keep passing 60 days, another 60 days. So right now we are funded through the middle of March. So we will need to pass another temporary continuing resolution if we can't do our job and pass the 12 appropriation bills necessary by that time. So once we do get those 12 bills passed and have a long-term solution and fund the government for the year, at that point then we'll be ready to move on and actually pass the Farm Bill that's necessary. The Farm Bill was extended for 12 months at the end of last year as part of one of the continuing resolutions. So the Farm Bill is okay until the end of September, but we do need to get a long-term solution in place. And Congressman Lucas is always going to fight to maximize benefits for the production side as much as possible. The majority of the Farm Bill is comprised of SNAP benefits or food stamps, but Congressman Lucas is always going to try to pull and vouch for the farmers, the people actually producing what feeds us as much as possible. Big thing that's going on right now, news is just dominated by the southern border deal, and of course Peyton will talk about that more. That did not pass the Senate, and if it comes up again, if it does pass the Senate, it's going to have a hard time in the House, for better or worse. So Congressman Lucas has not had the opportunity to vote on that, and probably, in all likelihood, will not have the opportunity to vote on that. The other huge thing going on in Congress right now is foreign aid. Of course, we have the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. They're fighting and dying for themselves, and then Israel and Hamas. And so a package passed the Senate last week. My timelines are kind of running together. Maybe it was earlier this week. It's all kind of blurred. But anyway, it was a $96 billion package, about $60 billion of which would go to Ukraine, 14, I believe, for Israel, 9 for Taiwan, and the rest to miscellaneous defense interests around the globe. And that did pass the Senate, so it will come over to the House. But Speaker Johnson has indicated it's not a top priority of his for that to be heard anytime soon. So that also has kind of a tough path ahead. So that is about all I have. I'll take any questions. I'll try to answer questions. If not, I'll talk to you afterwards. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Peyton to do his half. Thanks. Love you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Peyton Burns. I am a field representative for Senator James Lankford, so I cover Northwest Oklahoma. Wesley was talking about his territory. It's a wide range, but it's a lot of great people. Sometimes the miles and the cows, they beat the amount of people that you see. But it's not something that I'm that upset with. I enjoy the views and love God's country. So Senator Lankford, he serves on the Finance Committee, Ethics Committee, the Intelligence Committee, and then Homeland Security. That last piece, Homeland Security, I'll touch on just a little more later, but I do want to mention over this last week, the last few days, I haven't heard anything from our office about it yet, but there has been some sort of national security threat that the intelligence committees have been briefed on. We're understanding, I don't know what exactly it is, but I think it's in all likelihood, from what we've heard from the press about it, it may be tied to a lot of the foreign aid that we're dealing with and a lot of those national security concerns. Not the foreign aid piece, but more the national security concerns that are going on the other side of the lake, as we call it. But as far as on Homeland Security, I want to touch on that a little more. The Senator, he is a ranking member of the subcommittee on Homeland Security for General Government and Border Management. And so this is where it's kind of coming in a role for him recently. Christian Sinema is the chair of that, so him and Christian Sinema and then Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, have been working on so in December the Senate voted pretty much along party lines, so a little explanation there also. We say the majority is pretty tight in the Senate. Well, in the Senate you have to get 60 votes to pass anything. It's called the filibuster rule. It's been traditional. It's been around for a while, where you have to get 60 votes in the Senate to break off debate and keep people from filibustering until it dies. So you have to be able to get it, and most of the time, unless you have a 61-seat majority, you're going to have to get people from the other side to agree on policy to be able to move forward. And so this is why a bipartisan deal didn't happen whenever President Trump was in office on the border, and it hasn't happened in 30 years on the border. And so the Senator, in this small working group, has been working on a proposal for border security, which caught the news waves mostly because of the presidential election, and so a lot of that information was not shared accurately across the news cycle. And I think our local stations, really with the Senator getting out there and getting what was actually in the bill out, helped a lot, because when he was able to explain what was specifically in there, it was able to get that out to information. One of the biggest rumors that were false about the bill that I'm continuing to try to explain to people is that the bill that he came up with, the deal would not allow 5,000 illegal immigrants in a day. That's been the one thing that people really have been pushing out there to anyone that possibly can listen to it. It's not going to allow 5,000. The Senator would be crazy to agree to a deal that would allow 5,000 illegal immigrants in a day, standing on the southern border with a clicker until you get to 5,000 people and shutting down the whole entire border, starting to enforce laws that are already there at 5,000. That's what people are making out to be. That's completely false. What his policy change is going to be is it's changing a system right now we have where all of our detention facilities on the southern border are overloaded. So right now the Biden administration is simply catching and releasing. They're finding an illegal immigrant, they're catching them, and then they're just letting them go in our country, and their court date's in 10 years. So that's what the system is now, because it's so overloaded, and also it's bad policy and it's bad enforcement. What this would do is force and tighten the amnesty rules and asylum to where you can't come across our southern border and say, I have fear in my own country, and get asylum immediately. There's a system that they get vetted. About 11% of the people will ever actually be going through our process and be able to become a legal immigrant to our country. But it'll also change that system from catch and release to detain and deport. So when they cross our southern border, they will be screened. that we detained in this detention facilities that are going to be up by 50,000 beds now with this bill if it would pass. And if they don't qualify, they're going to be deported to their old country. That was once it hits 50,000 a day. Our Border Patrol is overloaded. They can't handle this many people a day being processed, so they skip the whole screening process at that point. They're just detaining and deporting them to their old country, and they're shutting down the southern border, essentially. So that's what the 5,000 number is about. When it hit the media waves, before the bill ever came out, the senator was making calls to people on the conservative side so that they'd be aware of what was going to be in the bill and to hear the facts from him. And several of them took that opportunity to share false information about it. To put it into political talk shows at 6 and 7 p.m. on Mondays that a group of people may watch, that gets them fired up and angry at their legislative officials. And so false information about that point specifically has been pushed. It'll also add 50 more miles of border wall according to Trump's standards, the way he wanted it. And it'll start to, it'll increase the funding that Border Patrol is able to have to be able to process and do their jobs efficiently. So it was a piece of legislation the senator worked hard on for 6 months, and quite frankly, it came at a bad time the last few months just because of the presidential election. President Trump decided he didn't want one. He didn't want a border bill. He had, in fact, the senator had a talk show host threaten him, call him, weeks before the bill was actually released and say, if you solve the border crisis during an election year, I will ruin you. I will destroy you. And that's been a challenge that he's had to deal with. This whole facet is the politics of it overtakes the policy. And that's what we're experiencing more and more in Washington. It's a challenge. It's what Wesley talked about. Working in a bipartisan manner in good faith to try to find a solution is getting smaller and smaller. The senator voted against, so the Senate, after they considered and they said, hey, we don't want any Ukraine funding unless there's border security policy tied to it. That's what they voted on in November and December. When they voted against that and decided they wanted to stop, they agreed they wanted border policy changes. And the House even put through their own plan on border policy changes. Well, all of a sudden, this policy deal gets made in February, in January and February, it comes out, and all of a sudden the House doesn't want a border policy change. They say the president can enforce it. Well, you put through your own border policy change with provisions that several of them, a good portion of them, mirror what we have in our bill. But really, I don't know that there's going to be a border policy change happen. There's a group working in the House right now. But that's been the senator, that's been what he's been working on for 6 months now with a small group, and that's just the challenge we face in Washington. On the side, he's been working on several other issues. I know his Prevent Government Shutdowns Act is something that's a priority to him. What this would do essentially, there's a lot of games politically that get played with government shutdowns every time it happens. The senator's tired of that affecting people's Social Security at home, affecting their daily lives because Congress is incompetent. So his proposal would be to, if passed, is to bring a big Government Shutdowns Act. He's made strides on this every time a government shutdown looms. Creates a 2-week continuing resolution on the floor with the provisions that everyone in Congress has to be in D.C. and can't be on official or campaign travel. And the only thing that can be on the agenda are appropriations bills. So you can't work on anything else but appropriations bills and doing your job as members of Congress. It was another common sense solution that's been kind of overtaken by crazy politics and haven't been able to be enforced because a lot of people up there want leverage with the government shutdown. They want to leverage with people's lives, which is a little terrifying at times, especially as partisan as things are getting. So that's all. I don't want to talk anymore. I have to explain. If I don't explain that border deal, I won't do my job. So thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I agree with you. I've been at the Capitol all week, and I don't want to talk anymore, so I'm just going to say that. Now, thank you all for being here. I'm going to go over some bills, but someone came up earlier and told me they've been getting love letters about me in the mail. Yeah, if you're in Oklahoma City and you're being effective and you scare people, because they don't like what you're doing, they go after you. So don't really know what group that is going after me. That mailer's coming out of Wisconsin. So it's dark money. I ran for pro tem. That race was this past week, did not win, but I was running for pro tem. If it stops, it was because I was running for pro tem. And they wanted to just give me headaches in district while I was trying to run for pro tem. So if that's the case, it's on the pro tem race. I do have a bill that, a sports book bill that will allow anyone in the state of Oklahoma to open up a sports book or have the right to open up a sports book. My bill is not an exclusive compact with the tribes, and they're the only one that can open up sports books. I have a bill that anybody can. And for me, you take the gambling part aside, I think, not just the state, but our country is so divided. And it is one group against another group. It's this group against that group. I wanted to treat everybody fair. If we're going to allow a business in the state of Oklahoma, why say this group can do it, but you can't? And that's why I'm running the bill. It's probably not going to go anywhere because there is another bill out there to allow the tribes to do sports book. Knowing the leadership in the Senate the way I do, that's the bill that's going to run. But I wanted to at least put it up there and say, look, have the argument. Everybody should be able to do a business if they want to in the state of Oklahoma. We shouldn't exclude anyone. If we're going to allow it in the state of Oklahoma, anyone in the state of Oklahoma should be able to do something. So with that might be why I'm getting these, but right now, it's the jury's still out on who's doing it. It's just, all I know is dark money coming out of Wisconsin. So now, what am I going to do for you guys? I need to go to glasses, or my EA needs to print this bigger. So I have some bills that are holdovers from last year. So our session is a legislative session is 2 years, and we're in the second year of legislative session. So any bills that did not get to the governor's office last year are still valid. They're still going, and so these are the bills that I have ready to be heard. Commission of the Land Office, CLO. How many people in here likes the CLO? How many people in here don't like the CLO? Just me? No wonder I can't get this bill heard. What this is this will add another individual to the board. Right now, the board the trust that oversees the CLO is the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of ag, the AG, and the state auditor, and the school superintendent. I want to add an at-large position of a layman that is in rural Oklahoma, because the majority of CLO land is in rural Oklahoma, and we should have a voice on that board of trustees on the direction the CLO is going. Some of the bills that I'm running this year is I'm not just targeting CLO, but I do have a bill that the government cannot own more than 15% of a county. CLO owns 750,000 acres in the state of Oklahoma. The majority of it is in Cimarron County. They own 20% of the entire county. That's the county I live in. I have seen firsthand how the government owning that much property in a county affects the economy of the county. The LOFT, which is the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency, audited them last spring. The two schools that's left in Cimarron County, having 20% of the land there off the tax rolls, the government owns it, is costing those two schools $1.5 million a year because they do not pay taxes on that land. It's hurting those schools. And that's just what we can, prove on paper. What we can't prove on paper is no one's living on these properties. So those people that aren't living on it aren't sending those kids to school, so we're not getting the attendance. Also, those people that's not living on that piece of property because it's government owned is not going to town and buying groceries. They're not going to town buying a Ford. And why I bring that up is Boise City used to have a Ford dealership. They don't anymore. It hurts the economy when the government owns that much property in one county. I don't believe that America was made great by the government owning land. America is a great country because of private property ownership. It's the hope, it's the dreams of I own something. That's why we're a great country. And that's why I'm also running this bill. I have a bill that conservation easements. So you can put a conservation easement on your property. My bill says that when it sells, if you're selling it, you have to disclose it to the buyer. And I was shocked you didn't have to do that anyway, but if Carl wants to buy my place and I have a conservation easement on it, and I don't tell him and he's wanting to develop it, he buys it, goes in and develop it, and they say, oh no, you can't because there's a conservation easement on it. It needs to be disclosed that there is conservation easements on property. I have an ambulance, that's a holdover from last year. It's to distinguish our EMS people as essential services. I didn't realize they weren't until COVID hit, and they're not essential as far as what's declared essential services. That's crazy. I sure think they're essential. So that's a holdover. I don't know what the holdup is on that because that should have went through fairly easy. Also have a retirement bill for the EMS. I did not run a whole lot of controversial bills. I've got 15 new bills this year, then those holdovers from last year. Main reason is I was running for pro tem, and I wasn't going to run some hot issue bill that's going to make everybody mad if I was running for pro tem. Let's just be nice and help everybody out, right? I told somebody this last week. I thought I figured the pro tem race would be later on in session. Normally it is. It's March, April. We have the second week. Well, I told somebody last week, I said, this feels a lot like the year in college. I changed my major to be a coach. I wanted to coach basketball, and I go home for Christmas, changed my major, signed up for the classes. I go home for Christmas. My brother's a teacher. He said, well, if you want to be a coach, you might as well buy the U-Haul trailer right now. And I got to thinking about it. Man, I don't want to move around, because coaches do move around quite a bit. I don't want to do that. So I go back to school, and I changed back to an ag business degree and dropped all those classes. I only had 12 hours after I did that. Man, that's the easiest semester I had. With that being said, when you think you're going to have an easy session, that's when it comes up. It may not be the bills that I'm running this year. That's the hot issues. It may be the bills other people are running that affect us, that we need to take care of and protect our district, and that's what I'm going to be looking at this year. We had the big issue right now is tax cuts. And if you read the news, the House and the Senate can't get along. Basically, I can leave that right there, right? I don't have to just say on tax cuts. It's basically anything. But on this deal, it's the tax cuts. The Senate wants tax cuts. We just don't. Yeah, we do. We do. Well, the problem is we don't know what we want. I think in the Senate we are 100% behind a grocery sales tax cut on the state side only. But the others is, I mean, there's so many taxes on you guys. What do we cut? And we can't come up with a consensus. Do we want to do a 1/4%? Do we want to, on the income tax, do we want this? Do we want that? We don't have a full consensus. We got some, well, if we're going to get tax cuts, we want reforms. There's still a whole lot of wiggling around going on in the Senate. But I can tell you what I have seen is where most of the senators are behind is a grocery sales tax exemption. I know we were talking about the Board of Equalization, see what they say when they come back. It's politics. Came back higher than we expected, but we've still got the leadership in the Senate said, well, you know, we're still a little nervous about that. So we're not singing Kumbaya on tax cuts yet between the House and the Senate. So I think we'll get something done. I don't think it's going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of negotiations. I just hope, because in my feeling, and I've been down there for 10 years, I still see the money coming into the Senate as y'all's money. There's members down there that once that money hits the Capitol, oh, this is our money. We can do this project, and we can do that. We can give it over here. We can give it over there. They think it is the state's money. I still think it's y'all's money. And I feel like it is my duty to spend that money as responsible as I can, because it's y'all's money. It's not mine. It's not the state of Oklahoma. It's y'all's. If we do have plenty of money to cover our bills and put back, because I was down there in those bad years when we cut everything. It was so bad when I was in the House, 16, 17, that I walked into my office one day and the appropriations chairman and the Speaker of the House is going through the couch cushions in my office looking for spare change about the budget. That's how bad it was. It was horrible. I want enough money in reserves that will get us through those bad times. Because we all know we have good times and we have bad times in Oklahoma. It's our main driver of our economy here in this state is oil and gas. Oil and gas is traded on the board. Anything's traded on the board, you're going to have your peaks and you're going to have your valleys. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And that's just the way it is. We're going to have good years and we're going to have bad years. We've got to keep enough in the coffers to get us through the bad years. And I want to be very, very careful in how we spend this money, because I don't want to go through what Carl and I had to go through in 16 and 17 again. I don't want to put a future legislature in that position. I want to have it set up that if we ever get there again, and I hope we don't, that we have money in reserves that we can weather the storm and get through. But with that, I will turn it over to the illustrious. Oh, one other thing. Carl brought it up to me that his shoes are cleaner than mine, and I'm sitting over there with my legs crossed, and I look down, and I'm like, oh crap! I wore my work boots. So I went home Wednesday evening and did some stuff, and yesterday before I came here, I ran through and checked my cows. I'm like, I'm not putting on my good boots. I'll just change them when I get to Alva. Yeah, I forgot to change them. So, Carl does have cleaner shoes on than I have.
You got nicer pants on than I do, so. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
One of my rules, never get caught without water when you're talking. Let me give you a little overview of what's going on. First of all, can I briefly touch on your grocery tax? The grocery tax would only take the state portion off the grocery tax, okay, which is about 4 cents. So there would still be some tax on your groceries, because I don't want everybody to say, hey, they got rid of the grocery tax, but I'm still paying tax. Why is that? Well, your town, your communities, and your counties rely on that sales tax to make ends meet. It'd be terrible for us to to cut that out too. So there would still be some tax, it would just be reduced by about half, okay? So I want to make sure we're clear on that when we're going forward. So, we've got an interesting year ahead of us, okay? Like Senator Murdoch said, they've already elected the pro tem elect. He won't officially be the pro tem until the beginning of next year. We, in March the 4th, will elect the speaker-elect for the next year. Well, you say, well, what big deal is that? Pro tem has been in there 6 years. Speaker's been in there 8 years. I've been there 8 years. I've only had one speaker the whole time I've been there. So when you change leadership, you change emphasis, you change, it's a weird dynamics. I don't know if I can give you an example, but you know, if you get on the wrong side of the pro tem, or if you get on the wrong side of the speaker, your bills don't get hurt. They can be mean. They can stick you on bad committees. They can take your committee chairmanship away. We had a friend that ran for speaker 6 years ago, because we were in that downturn and everything. A friend of mine ran for speaker and lost, and he lost his chairmanship. They tried to get some stuff out of his district and hurt him that way. And so it can be mean down there. So the dynamics are changing over this next year. I feel very comfortable that with the speaker that we've got coming in, that he's going to win, and I think that's Kyle Hilbert. Okay, he happens to be my desk mate. So in the Senate they all get their own desk, but in the House we have to share a desk. And so he's my desk mate, and we get along very well. So anyway, I think he will win, but you never know. And so I'm just telling you, that's some of the dynamics that we don't know exactly how everything's going to go. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, also one other dynamic. We don't always get along with everybody all the time, okay? I get along with the governor most of the time. However, me and the governor did not agree on a special session, okay? To me, the only reason to cause a special session to call us up there, spend $300,000 of your taxpayer dollars to be up there an additional week was so at the State of the State address, he could say, I got you a tax cut. Well, it didn't happen. We knew going in that the Senate wasn't going to do anything until the Board of Equalization came through. And so it was also a move to put pressure on the Senate to do something. Would you agree? And so me and the governor didn't agree with that. Now, there's most of the things I do agree with the governor. But that's some of the dynamics we live with. Two of my good friends, a lot of them had voted against my bills. I thought we were friends, you know. Why are you voting against my bill? But you have to represent the people you represent. And so it's an interesting dynamics. And so I've said that being in the House of Representatives or being up there can be the loneliest place that you want to be. Because there are some people who are going to be for you, and then some people are against you, and then they switch. And so you never know. But anyway, let you know what's going on. I've got 5 bills that have passed through committee. I think that's all that I will have. I handed one of my bills off to Pro Tem Hilbert, who will be possibly the next speaker, and he's going to carry that bill for me. But I'm working on a pre-authorization bill. Pre-authorization of medical procedures and medical care is very non-transparent for the physicians, okay? I don't know how many times I've prescribed a medicine for a patient, sent them to the pharmacy says, hey, their insurance doesn't pay for that. Pay for something, you got to get something different. I think it's better for you. I mean, that's just a written prescription. I'm talking about, what about a medical procedure? Well, you come in with the heart problems, and I say, you need this done, okay? We need to get this test done. Well, your insurance company comes back later and says, well, you shouldn't have had that test. We don't know if we're going to pay for that test. I just want some clarity on the front end, okay? So this is going to be a bill. I don't know if we're going to get it through, but I've got We had a meeting this week for an hour and a half. I had insurance here, I had physicians here, I had large company groups, small company groups, just all these people together. And I've decided I'm going to put you in a small room, and we're going to go going through the bill line by line. We covered 7 pages. The bill's 17 pages. We covered 7 pages in an hour and a half. Took a while. But like I said, we're going to work on this, and I want you to be honest and true. And so far, it looks good. I don't know if we're going to get it done. We're meeting again this week. And so I'm working on that, and if I have to, I can run through rules later on, but I'm working on trying to make this more clear to the physicians, and then that helps the insurance to become more clear so we know what we can do or can't do with your particular insurance. Does that make sense? Okay. Another bill that's been big, I've heard a lot of things from over here at Alva, is my water metering bill. Okay. First of all, the OWRB, who would have the authority over this bill, has no authority over your domestic residential water. Did not put a meter on it, every water meter in town. This is only permitted water. Permitted water is industrial water, commercial water, high volume water. How many of you guys know where the water from Alva comes from? Where's it come from?
About 20 miles that way.
Where at? The pond?
Wellfield.
It comes out of the pond?
Wellfield.
Wellfield, right? Comes out from underground aquifers, right? What would happen to Alva if that underground aquifer dried up? We would have a hard time existing out here, wouldn't we? And so my concern on this whole water deal is that we be great stewards. Last spring, Clio Springs, remember last year was pretty dry, right? Clio Springs, the city of Clio Springs water field dropped so low their wells were going dry. So I had a meeting in April in Fairview with those, that were affected and those constituents getting input from them. I had an interim study this summer also talking about underground aquifers. You guys lay under the Cimarron aquifer, I'm pretty sure. No? Which one? You're on the edge. We're on the Cimarron. Ogallala's further west. Yeah, now the Ogallala is the one that's the biggest concern to me right now. Ogallala covers 7 states. Texas all the way up into Colorado, Nebraska, and all that up in there. It's dropping a foot a year. Okay? Now, it used to drop a foot every 2 years. They say it's not a replenishable water field, underground aquifer anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen. But it's kind of like you being on the edge of a pond. Okay? You stick your cork out there, and if the water goes down, only the people on the edge of the pond are going to go dry or not have any water. If you're in the middle of it, you're all right. So, same thing happened in the Cimarron aquifer. Some of these wells that Clio Springs had were in the edge of the aquifer. Well, the water table is going down, and then we got an irrigator that's on the east side of town out there that's punching 40 holes a month, drilling 40 wells a month to start new irrigation wells. So that's what my problem was. I just want to make sure we're responsible stewards of this water. I'm repeating that. I just want you to understand where my heart is on this. Okay? You as a farmer, you as a landowner, have 2 acre-feet. Okay? So in other words, for every acre you've got 2 foot of water you can use on that land a year. Okay? We've got some that are going over that. And so I'm just trying to make sure we have a way to measure. Right now you don't have to measure or meter. And my bill is not just metering, it's metering or measuring. It would allow them to use how much pressure you got, what size pipe you have, and how long you ran it. And I can tell you how much water you use. Can't you? Pressure, size, time, and you can tell how much water. I'm getting a lot of kickback. I've spent hours this week. In fact, I was at a Farm Bureau on Wednesday night and spent 3 hours talking to them about the water bill. Like I said, I'm just trying to look at this because Northwest Oklahoma would cease to exist if we don't have our water. I'm just trying to make sure we're good stewards of that. And so that's all that bill is. I had 2 other water bills. We've held those over. I'm negotiating with those. It's interesting. You play with people as, oh, you're going to kick me out, you're going to hurt me, you're taking away my rights. By the way, there's only 3 states from Oklahoma to the west that the people have the right to the water. In Kansas, you know what they did? They put a moratorium on no more irrigation wells. We can't do that in Oklahoma because it's an individual's water rights here in Oklahoma. But just like you say, well, it's my right to use my water however I want. Well, it's your right to speak, it's your right to drive, right? But if you're going 85 down here south of Alva and the cop sees you, he's just going to wave at you and say, go on down the road. He's not, right? He's going to pull you over and give you a ticket, right? Why? Because it's unsafe and it's concerning. And so the same way on the water, stay within your guidelines. And that's all I'm asking. And you don't have to report them even. You just have to keep a record of them. So if somebody does have a complaint, you can say, okay, here's my water. Here's what I've been using. So that's my water bill. As you can tell, I'm kind of passionate about that one. But those are my 2 passion bills. I'm also running a bill to, rural Oklahoma is having a problem getting large animal veterinarians, okay? We are running short, and so we've had a scholarship program for medical students. We've had a scholarship for PAs and nurse practitioners in certain areas. And so for rural Oklahoma, I've tried to set up 6 scholarships for large animal vets. They go, we're going to pay pay their education that year, but they have to serve 4 years in a small community specializing in large vet. Now, it's proven that when they go out there, 77% of them stay there. And so that's a good number. That's a pretty good return on your investment. So if they don't stay the 4 years, they get to pay back the loan plus the interest. Okay? And there's a little penalty on there too. We'll make it uncomfortable for them. I want them to go and stay there. Another bill I'm running is for the Ag Department asked me to run a bill for them. We redefined forestry. Forestry service is generally called in, fire and forestry is generally called in when there's a huge grass fire or something like that. Okay? I know I had to help get them in over on Morelandale and get the helicopters to come in and to work on that. And so, anyway, we're redefining how forestry is called in, how they coordinate with the local fire departments, and trying to make that easier. There was a certain form they had filled out, but it didn't work for everybody, so we're trying to work on that. And then also we're working on back burning, how to do a back burn line so we can stop a fire, by back burning, and set some guidelines up that. So we had the rights of the farmers protected and the rights of the rights of the individuals in danger protected too. So those are 4. I think they've got another. I can't think what my 5th one is. But anyway, we only get 8. I've narrowed it down to 5 now. But all the 5 that I've got have got through committee and will be coming to the floor. So I did get all 5 of those through. And so that's what we got going on. There's a lot of issues going on right now. We are in the committee process. We're just trying to get our bills heard, get them through, and see where we're at there. Floor work will probably start in another week, really be on the floor more running bills. Is the 29th the deadline for committee work? And it's end of the month. That's right. End of the month. And then we have to have everything done by spring break. I don't know, when's spring break? We definitely don't have any students in here, do we? What? Yeah, March the, what'd you say? I'm dead. 19th. That's why I was thinking it was the 19th. It was around that. So we got committees till the 29th of February. Unusual, we never had it 29th. But anyway, And then we'll have to have everything off the floor by the 19th, and then we switch bills with the Senate. So that's where we're at in the process too. So anyway, I've talked enough. Now, what do you want to talk about? Great. Okay, Kevin. No, I'm serious. There are a lot of things to be talked about. I'm getting hit up with bills, and I apologize if any of you guys have asked me questions about bills. The last 2 weeks have been literally crazy, but we're trying to get caught up on things like that. I'm going to try to catch up this weekend on my emails. So, anything else?
How many kids do you have that have done the 14-year-old driving?
Oh.
Driving. How many kids have signed up?
Last I heard in November, I had around 100 that had signed up. That's my other bill. Thank you for mentioning that.
Welcome.
So with the bill process, 14-year-old farm permit, okay, for farm kids to be able to drive to work and direction of their parents. It passed last year after 2 years of getting it through it. And about a month after it passed, I had driver's ed schools calling these guys, private driver's ed schools, calling me saying, you know, what good do what you doing out there, you know? And I'm going, it wasn't a secret. We didn't hide it from anybody. But anyway, driver's ed students can't go take that driver's ed until they're 15 and a half. So I'm doing a cleanup bill because it was an unintended consequence. And so they will be able to start that at 13 and a half so that they will be able to get a farm permit at 14. And then we're redefining what a farm is and all that, just little tweaks. But we're just doing some cleanup work. Thank you. That's my other bill.
You're welcome.
So, anything else? Any other questions? Jody? I didn't know I've never. Casey, you did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'll ask one.
Sure.
Senator Murdoch brought up the, making sure that we have enough in reserve, and which is, I agree with 100%. Right now, from everything that we were hearing, we have about between 4 and 5 billion in all the different accounts. What do you think, in both of your opinions, would be an amount that could be, invested in Oklahoma, but enough back to save for the future?
Take a breath. So I don't know.
So, and I'm going to try to use a little common sense, and we don't do that at the Capitol at all. I'd like to have $1 for every time I've said let's use a common sense down here. But so in 16, 17, when I first got elected, we was $643 million hole in the budget, and I thought that was horrible until the next year. I think the biggest we were 1.3, but our budget was 6.5 billion for as far as what we appropriate. So we've doubled. I think we're about 11 something now is what our budget is in the state. So just if the worst times I've seen was 1.3 and our total budget was 6.5, we're at about 11. So I'd feel comfortable with 3 billion. And that's just using common sense of where we were in the worst times compared to what we budget, and then where we're at now, what we're budgeting, and what could get us through another downturn like we saw in 16.
Thank you.
Interesting thing is that we have got a lot of deferred maintenance that we need to take care of. Our tourism is one, higher ed's one that we've been hit up about deferred maintenance, and so I know those are things we are looking at.
Well, I'd like to make another point. In 16, I believe it was 16, we took the cap down on county roads and bridges. We've not got the money back to the counties that they had prior to that being cut. And I'd like to see them get back to the 150 million that they were in 14, 15. But with inflation, I don't know what their needs are today compared to back then, but we don't even have them back to the 150 million where they were capped. I'd like to see that because I think we drive on a lot of county roads out here. I'd sure like to have them fixed. I've asked my county commissioner when that auction was. He goes, what auction? I'm like, well, the auction you sold all the road graders, because I hadn't seen one in so long, I figured you sold them.
So, on tax cuts, the House has voted for the income tax, was voted for the grocery tax, so we do want to do that. I personally will say this publicly, I don't mind saying it, I'm not in favor of eliminating income tax, because that's what they did in Texas, and the taxes are higher in Texas than they are here. And most of it's going to go to ad valorem. And where I'm somebody that represents large land mass, that's not good for my people.
That's, I've got land in Texas and Oklahoma, and I open a gate up and I move cows through the gate and they're in Texas. It's the same grass, everything's the same, but my taxes in Texas is 3 times what it is in Oklahoma.
With that, thank you. Jody, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, first off, thank you to Peyton, and Wesley, and Casey, and Dr. Newton for speaking here today. Really appreciate you guys coming for us. Thank you to Northwestern for hosting us both. Thank you so much, and Kelsey and everyone else. We're really excited. We are announcing the top 3 today for the Citizens Choice Awards Gala at noon. So be looking on our Facebook page. We're also going to have a hard copy in the newsroom for next week to vote. 1 vote per person. So make for sure that you do that. We're really excited. It's going to be on April the 4th. The theme is 1920s. So that will be all jazzy and fun. And does anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Any events coming up that I did not write down? Yes.
First, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Very excited. If you weren't here last night, it was a great evening. Being the school down south in both basketball games. We do have a big opener for our baseball team, which is 7-1. They got a series with Washita Baptist. And then just kind of a sneak peek, but we were given a wonderful gift from some wonderful people that we will start some renovation in Harrod Hall, but we'll have some more to come in the future about that, but just kind of wanted to talk about that. So thank you.
Last month or December, maybe I don't remember, we had mentioned that there's a group of us kind of restarting the Professionals Network in Alva, Northwest Oklahoma. We will be hosting our first event with Bank Central on March 28th. There'll be some more information to come about. It will be a network at night, so it'll be after hours. So if you know anyone, follow our Facebook page. Chamber will be sharing. There will be some stuff coming from Bank Central. If you have any questions, you can reach out to myself or Jody.
If you see, we have Spring Showcase this Saturday, so we'll have a bunch of potential students and their family here. So if you see anybody walking around, just welcome them to the community. So we hope to get a lot of them coming to school next year.
So, Jeremy Logston, Alva Health and Wellness. I just wanted to take a moment to say that, I guess a public service announcement is, we've got the flu in A and B that are really high, and now COVID's come to the party too. So, important if you have comorbidities that you get in quickly, because there are some medications we can give to help that happen. If you don't have comorbidities, at least with the flu, there's still some things we can do. Those treatments are only really effective for the first 2 to 3 days. If you've been feeling bad for longer than 2 or 3 days, the medication doesn't work well. So just know that. And so that's just a little bit of guidance for the public that I don't think is well understood. So thank you.
City Council is on Tuesday because of the federal holiday on Monday, so City Council at 6:30 at the Chambers.
We're making it for the Alva Fire Department so they can get a new Jaws of Life machine. So right now they're aiming for $18,000. We're right at $7,500. We have another month and a little bit to go, so you can donate online now. Bank is up there website, so you can do that. So please consider it. Hopefully you got a nice newsletter and mail last week. So read that over, see what great things Bank is doing, and get involved. Thanks.